Two horses, two eras, one impossible question. Man o' War crushed everything in his path so completely that jockeys were ordered to slow him down. Secretariat ran so fast that scientists still cannot fully explain what they measured. Both are gone. Both are legends. And somehow, impossibly, the world still cannot agree on which one was greater. Tonight, we find out why. Here is what makes this debate unlike anything else in sporting history. This is not about statistics. This is not about racing. This is about something buried far deeper inside every single person who has ever watched greatness and felt their chest tighten with emotion they couldn't explain. Man o' War belonged to an era of raw, suffocating, unapologetic power. Secretariat belonged to an era of perfect, measurable, scientifically verified immortality. One was witnessed by human hearts. One was captured by unforgiving clocks. And right there, in that single, beautiful, devastating difference, lives the reason this argument has survived 100 years and will survive 100 more. Because both horses were right. Both definitions were valid, and humanity, in its most passionate and loyal form, simply cannot choose between two versions of something genuinely, undeniably perfect. But before we go any deeper, you need to truly understand who these two horses actually were. Not the legends, not the myths, not the stories passed down through generations with trembling hands and wet eyes. The raw, unfiltered, historically verified truth of what they actually did and how they actually did it. Because once you feel the full, undeniable weight of both legacies simultaneously, this debate will never feel casual again. It will feel exactly what it has always truly been: personal, urgent, and absolutely, beautifully, permanently unresolvable. Some arguments fade quietly with time. This one never did. More than a century has passed since Man o' War last raced. More than 50 years since Secretariat left the world speechless at Belmont. Both horses are gone. Both eras have vanished completely. And yet fans are still fighting, not casually, not politely, but with a fire that feels genuinely personal, genuinely urgent, genuinely important. That is not normal. That is extraordinary, because this debate was never really about horses. Beneath every argument, behind every statistic passionately thrown across a dinner table or fired through a comment section, something far deeper is happening. Two completely different philosophies of greatness are colliding violently and refusing to surrender. Man o' War represents raw, suffocating, unapologetic dominance. Secretariat represents something almost spiritual, a physical perfection so mathematically beautiful that modern science still struggles to fully explain it. Here is the most beautiful and most frustrating truth. Neither side is wrong. Both horses achieved the genuinely impossible. Both carried legacies so powerful that even people who have never watched racing somehow know their names. This debate doesn't just survive, it breathes, it grows, and it will outlast every fan still fighting it today. Before choosing a side, you must truly understand what you are choosing between. Not the mythology, not the romance, the raw, unfiltered truth of who these horses actually were. Because once you genuinely understand both of them, the debate doesn't get easier. It gets gloriously, beautifully, maddeningly harder. Man o' War arrived in 1919 like something racing had never seen. Enormous, copper red, and breathtaking. He didn't just win races, he consumed them. His jockeys were routinely told to hold him back, not because he struggled, but because his winning margins were embarrassing the entire sport. He lost only once in 21 races. Once. Against the very best his era could offer. That is not a record. That is a declaration. Then came Secretariat, and nothing was ever the same. His 1973 Belmont victory, 31 lengths, 2 minutes 24 seconds, remains the world record today. His heart, discovered after death, weighed an estimated 22 pounds, twice the normal size. Science still cannot fully explain what he was. One legend was felt, the other was measured. One lived in human memory, the other lives in mathematics. And that single difference is why this argument will never, ever end. Here is the question nobody wants to ask. Because once you ask it honestly, everything gets complicated. Can we actually compare two horses separated by more than 50 years, racing on different tracks, under different rules, against different competition, in completely different worlds? The uncomfortable answer is no. And yet we cannot stop doing it, because greatness demands comparison, even when comparison is impossible. Man o' War raced in 1919. There were no electronic timers, no standardized track surfaces, no modern veterinary science, no slow-motion cameras capturing every stride for analysis. His greatness was witnessed and remembered by human eyes. Passionate, emotional, gloriously imperfect human eyes. Secretariat raced in 1973, captured by cameras, measured by machines, analyzed by scientists. Every fraction of his performance exists permanently in cold, precise, arguable numbers. This is the era problem that silently poisons every comparison. We are not measuring two horses against each other. We are measuring two completely different versions of measurement against each other. One recorded by hearts, one recorded by clocks. And here lies the deepest truth of this entire debate. The era gap doesn't weaken the argument. It makes it eternal. Emotions are powerful. Loyalty is real. But eventually, in every great debate, the numbers step forward and demand to be heard. And when you sit down quietly, remove every bias, strip away every romantic story, and simply look at what both horses actually produced in cold, measurable terms, what you find is simultaneously clarifying and deeply humbling. Because the numbers don't settle this debate, they deepen it. They make you feel something you never expected to feel staring at cold, emotionless statistics. Genuine, overwhelming awe. Secretariat's case in pure data is almost supernatural. 3 Triple Crown races, 3 track records broken in the same single month. A Belmont time that 50 years of elite thoroughbred racing has never touched. A heart estimated at 22 pounds, twice the normal size, that physically explains what the clocks were desperately trying to record. These are not opinions dressed in scientific clothing. These are permanent, immovable, verified facts that exist, completely beyond argument, beyond era, and beyond the reach of any revisionist history. But Man o' War's numbers carry their own devastating, chest-tightening weight. 20 races won from 21 starts. Winning margins so obscene that his jockeys were ordered to slow down mid-race, not for mercy, but for the dignity of the sport itself. Victories against older, stronger, more seasoned horses that modern champions rarely dare attempt. Behind every number sits a living, breathing, thundering animal who made the greatest horses of his generation look painfully, heartbreakingly ordinary. Both sets of numbers are extraordinary. Both are legitimate. Both will still be extraordinary long after every fan debating them today is gone. And that is precisely, beautifully, and permanently why neither one wins. Nobody chooses their GOAT with a spreadsheet. Nobody sits down calmly, reviews every statistic, weighs every variable with perfect objectivity, and arrives at a rational, emotionless conclusion. That is not how human beings work. That is not how passion works. And horse racing, perhaps more than any other sport in history, has always lived and breathed entirely inside the territory of human emotion. You don't just watch these horses, you feel them. And what you feel determines everything. The fan who grew up hearing their grandfather describe Man o' War with trembling voice and wet eyes will never, not ever choose Secretariat. Because their connection isn't about data, it's about inheritance. It's about love passed down through generations, like a family heirloom too precious to question. That grandfather's memory is sacred. That loyalty is identity. Challenging it doesn't feel like a sports debate. It feels like a personal attack on something deeply beloved. And the fan who watched Secretariat's Belmont on television, feeling that impossible silence fall over 60,000 people simultaneously, will never need a statistic to justify their choice. Because they were there, they felt it, and feelings, unlike records, never expire. Every legend has shadows. Every goat has moments that passionate fans quietly ignore, carefully avoid, and desperately hope nobody brings up in conversation. Because real greatness isn't the absence of weakness. It's achieving something so monumentally extraordinary that the weaknesses become footnotes. But in a debate this fierce, this personal, and this important, those footnotes deserve to be read honestly, because the truth, even when uncomfortable, always makes the story richer. Secretariat's case against him is real and worth facing directly. After his legendary Triple Crown, he lost to horses nobody remembers today. Onion beat him. Prove Out beat him. A horse of his supposed supernatural ability should have been unbeatable. He wasn't. His career sample of 21 races feels dangerously small for a title as permanent and heavy as greatest of all time. Spectacular peaks, some critics argue, do not automatically erase inconsistent valleys. Man o' War never ran the Triple Crown. He never faced that specific three-race crucible that separates legends from icons in modern racing conversation. His competition, measured by today's standards, remains genuinely impossible to fully verify or trust. Both horses were flawed. Both were magnificent. And somehow, impossibly, both remain completely and utterly untouchable. Opinions from the grandstand are passionate. Opinions from comment sections are loud. But there is a completely different category of voice in this debate. The trainers, jockeys, historians, veterinarians, and racing insiders who spent their entire lives inside this sport, breathing its dirt, studying its science, and understanding its deepest truths at a level most fans will never reach. When these voices speak, something shifts. Because these people don't choose sides with their hearts alone. They choose with hard-earned, irreplaceable, lifelong knowledge. And what they say about both horses will stop you completely in your tracks. The most respected voices in racing history have consistently described Man o' War using one word above all others: incomparable. Legendary trainer Jimmy Jones was one of the most decorated and experienced horsemen American racing ever produced, a man who spent decades handling champions at the absolute highest level of the sport. He openly stated that Man o' War represented a level of natural dominance he never witnessed again in his entire extraordinary career. Jockeys who rode against Man o' War didn't describe racing him, they described surviving him. You didn't compete with Man o' War, You simply watched him leave while the gap between you grew wider with every single stride. Yet veterinary scientists who studied Secretariat after his death arrived at conclusions equally staggering and equally humbling. They discovered a physical specimen so anatomically extraordinary, a heart twice the normal size, lungs of impossible capacity, a stride mechanism that defied conventional biomechanical understanding, that leading experts concluded his capabilities arguably exceeded what horse racing's standard rules, distances, and formats even allowed him to fully demonstrate. Secretariat, in the opinion of those who understood his body most deeply, may never have truly reached his own ceiling. Both verdicts, delivered by the most qualified and experienced voices the sport has ever produced, arrive at exactly the same breathless, humbling, unforgettable place. Not admiration, not respect, but pure, absolute, wide-eyed disbelief that either horse ever existed at all. So here we are, 8 chapters deep into one of the greatest debates sport has ever produced. Every argument examined, every number studied, every weakness honestly confronted, every expert voice carefully heard. And after everything, after all the passion, all the evidence, all the science, and all the history, the verdict arrives not as a winner, but as something far more profound, far more meaningful, and far more permanent than any single champion could ever be. There is no winner, and that is exactly the point. Man o' War and Secretariat were not competitors. They were mirrors, each one reflecting a completely different but equally valid definition of what greatness truly means at its absolute highest level. Man o' War showed the world that dominance, when taken far enough, becomes something almost frightening in its completeness. Secretariat showed the world that perfection, when genuinely achieved, becomes something almost sacred in its beauty. One conquered his era entirely. The other transcended his era permanently. Both outcomes represent the pinnacle of what any athlete, human or animal, can possibly achieve within a single lifetime. But here is what matters most. This fight, this beautiful, passionate, endless, unresolvable fight, keeps both legends alive. And as long as fans keep fighting, neither horse ever truly dies. Now you know the truth. Now you have heard every argument, faced every weakness, and felt the full impossible weight of both legends simultaneously. So we are giving you one job. Decide. Drop your answer in the comments right now. Man o' War or Secretariat. No explanations needed. No apologies required. Just your honest, passionate, unshakable choice. And while you are down there fighting for your legend, because we know you will, hit subscribe, because this is only the beginning. The greatest debates in racing history are coming, and trust us completely. You cannot afford to miss a single one.